Hey everyone, and welcome to r/Unresolved Mysteries, a subreddit dedicated to the unresolved mysteries of the world. Now, this is my first time visiting this sub, and today you'll get to see some pretty interesting things, including an unexplained death, an unresolved disappearance, as well as some other cases. Now, as far as I know, this sub does have the same idea as a TV show called Unresolved Mysteries that ran a fair few years back. So, if you enjoyed that, you should enjoy this sub as well. But with that said, let's not waste another second and get straight into this first post by user /xnotacatx. Who was Ben Billamy /mostly harmless /denim? On July 23rd, 2018, in Big Cypress National Preserve at Naples Campground in Collier County, Naples, Florida, a pair of hikers discovered a man who was known on the Appalachian Trail as Denim and Mostly Harmless, deceased in his tent. He weighed 83 pounds, and foul play does not appear to be involved. He didn't have a phone, ID, credit cards when he was found, but he did have a journal and $3,640 in cash. His fingerprints were run through various databases with no matches. He's estimated to be around 35 to 50 years of age and had dark but greying hair and facial hair. His height was documented as 5'8". His teeth were documented to be in excellent condition. He had no tattoos, but he did have a small, faint linear scar on his abdomen. Other hikers on the Appalachian Trail recalled information that they knew from spending time with him on the trail. He told people he met on the trail that he lived in New York and that he worked in the tech industry. This seemed to be supported by the journal that was found with him, that contained script and coding notes, especially for the game Scrapes. He told a hiker that he met that he had quit his job and was living in Bear Mountain Park, New York, for 2 weeks before he decided to hike the Appalachian Trail southbound. He told others he could only hike 10 miles a day, and that he was hiking to Key West, Florida, and then he was going to hike back northbound. He told another hiker on the trail that he cut ties with his parents because his dad was abusive. The alias Denim was chosen because he wore denim jeans for the first 2 weeks on the trail. He mentioned an ex-girlfriend, no name or location given. He told another hiker on the trail that he was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, USA. He told a hiker that he did not have a phone because he was wanting to disconnect, and was relying on a paper map with a line drawn where the trail should be. He told a camper on February 24, 2018, that he'd been staying with his sister in Sarasota or Fort Myers, Florida area for a while. He told the same hiker that he had some health problems and wanted to do this trip while he still could. He told a hiker that his stuff was put in storage in New York by some friends. Some things to note. His pack was very large, and led other hikers on the trail to believe that he wasn't very experienced, as this is a pretty rookie mistake. One hiker saw it weighed at a hostel, and it weighed about 33.5 pounds. He wasn't interested in signing trail logs. He worked for money on the trail, at hostels and campgrounds for money, and used the alias Ben Billamy on registration paperwork. He bought his jacket, tent, trail guide, and maps in North Georgia, but used cash. And the coolest thing about this sub is that all of this has links down below explaining where OP got the information from, and allowing all of us to have a look and maybe contribute any information that we know to the case. So yes, I just wanted to note that this sub, all the stories here are true. These are real unresolved mysteries, and if you have real information on these cases, you can still contribute it, and that's kinda cool. With that said, I'm not really sure what sort of commentary you'd want me to run on these, if you'd want me to present my own theories on what happened to these people, or my own opinion, or if you want me to just sort of leave them and let you discuss it in the comments down below. I'm happy to take suggestions, so leave your opinions down below. I'll be sure to read through them, but for now, let's move on to the next post by user /AlwaysSunny in Upstate. 22-year-old Christine Markey of Oneida, New York, was reported missing on January 15, 1993, by her father, Philip Markey. Markey was last seen at her Elizabeth Street apartment on Sunday, January 10, 1993, according to her roommate when she was initially. Her roommate, Tracy L. Tabor, 22, said she last saw Markey at 8:30 a.m. that morning, wearing stretch pants and a t-shirt. Tabor claimed to have left the apartment for 2 hours and returned to Markey being gone. The two were planning to go apartment hunting later that day. A February 1993 interview quotes Tabor, "It bothers me a lot. We've been roommates for close to 6 years now. I don't think she's out gallivanting around. I think something's going on. I think something's happened. As the investigation continued, police discovered more information on the relationship between Markey and Tabor. And a later article on the case quoted, "Police say Christine Markey and her live-in girlfriend Tracy L. Tabor had an on-again, off-again romancing spanning a number of years. And although the couple kept many of their troubles to themselves, cops say their investigation showed the couple was far from perfect." At this point, Tabor was now a person of interest to police. Further investigating revealed a previously undisclosed altercation involving the couple that happened the night previous to Markey's last reported whereabouts. Prior to the 10th, Tracy Tabor learned of Christine Markey's secret relationship involving someone she'd met at a bar, Robert Gibson Maylou. The two had supposedly been dating for about a month. According to police and the account of Maylou, the night prior, Jan 9th, to Markey's disappearance, an argument between Tabor and Markey took place at the two women's Elizabeth Street apartment. The argument was about the secret relationship between Markey and Maylou. The two yelled profanities at one another, while Maylou, who was accompanied by a male friend, were present and listened. At some point, Markey and Maylou left the apartment and went to a local Oneida bar near Phelps Street. As of the pair were leaving the bar, Tabor pulled up in her car and demanded that Markey get in. During this interaction, Maylou recounted that Tabor threatened him, saying, "You'll never see Christine Markey again." Markey got into the car, and Maylou never saw her again. After picking her up in the early morning hours of January 10th, witnesses saw Markey and Tabor entering their apartment, but not coming out. Later in the day on the 10th, witnesses spotted Tracy Tabor, along with her father, Mike Tabor, moving boxes from the apartment on Elizabeth Street. Though the sighting during the early morning hours of the 10th is believed to be her last known movements, the landlord of the two women's 474 Elizabeth Street apartment believes to have seen Markey and Tabor going into their apartment on January 11th. This sighting shreds doubts on Tabor's original report that she last saw Christine at 8:30 a.m. for morning on January 10th. Though this is inconsistency that casts suspicion over Tabor as to why she would lie. Though Markey's landlord would not have been able to accurately identify her walking into her apartment on the 11th was a Monday, and it isn't reported that Markey went to work that day. Furthermore, Markey never picked up her last paychecks from either of her two jobs, one of which was at the Oneida Limited. Along with her paychecks never being picked up, Markey's social security number has never been used. It never appeared that she took any personal belongings with her if she left willingly, and no sighting of her has been reported in the 27 years following her disappearance. These facts and the circumstances prior to her disappearance label her as an endangered missing person. It's reported that Christine Markey had several run-ins with the law prior to her disappearance. Research brought up no reports on what specifically it was from what I could find. Despite this, her father stated that at the time she'd been doing well in the years prior to her disappearance, and had attended business and real estate classes at Morrisville State College. Christine Markey's boyfriend at the time, Robert Maylou, was questioned and ruled out as a suspect back in 1993. Oneida police have indicated that they would like to speak with him again, but are unable to locate him. I discovered that Tracy Tabor, who remained a person of interest in the case throughout the years, passed away at 48 years old on November 18th, 2018. She maintained her innocence always. NAMUS indicates that it does not have Christine's DNA, nor any family member's DNA, to match to any Jane Doe's or remains discovered, which is a shame. If Christine were alive today, she would be 49 years old. And if for some reason you know anything about this case, there is information down here on who to contact in case that needs to be done. And I mean, that does seem suspicious. Had an argument with her roommate the night before and was never seen again. It's interesting that her body was never found though. I feel after reading this sub that there are a lot of people whose bodies are never found. So apparently hiding a dead body is possible, but no one shares their secrets with us. And here's the next post by user/reallytopdrawer. Ellen McClung Berry was born in 1894. The great-great-granddaughter of the founder of Knoxville, Tennessee. She also happened to be the great-granddaughter of Charles McClung, who was one of the writers of Tennessee's first constitution. As a young woman, she spent time travelling abroad and became an expert on Italian art and wider European fashions. In 1928, she married wealthy coal magnate Thomas Huntington Berry in Georgia. The couple went on to have one son, Hugh Lawson McClung Berry. Dan Tondervold. In 1978, she became acquainted with a man named Dan Tondervold, who began to frequent her estate. He didn't have anyone in the area that knew him, and it was believed he had come from Denmark. He had reportedly corresponded with Ellen for up to 15 years before they first met. Many said that their relationship was difficult to quantify, and Ellen had introduced Dan to friends as both her godson and a friend of her son who died only a few years earlier. Many felt she was trying to replace her son, and some even claimed she'd referred to him affectionately as her son on occasion. Tondervold eventually moved in with Ellen, and lived in the guest house on the estate under the pretext of writing a book about her family. By 1982, he'd taken over the management of the estate, and had effectively cut Ellen off from all legal and financial counsel. Fraud revealed. In 1984, Dan convinced Ellen to take a winter vacation with him to Charleston, South Carolina. After 4 months, he requested Ellen fly back to Tennessee with her travelling companion while he drove her Mercedes back for her. When the elderly Ellen arrived home on March 31st, 1985, she found her entire fortune was gone. She would go on to lose her home and her livelihood, as the bank revealed many checks had been written and cashed by Tondervold in the preceding months, as well as accounts emptied, and a mortgage taken on the estate in her name. Meanwhile, Tondervold was over 100 miles away at a resort on Fripp Island, South Carolina. He was apparently unaware of Ellen's discovery of the fraud, and continued to write checks in her name and used her credit cards. When he was eventually told that the cards were maxed out, he explained that he had to go get his checkbook from the car and left without paying. The following day, police located a hastily written suicide note and a will written by Tondervold. It was assumed he was trying to make it look like he'd killed himself somewhere nearby to avoid the authorities. The body. 2 weeks after his disappearance, a body was found lying face down in a nearby swamp on Fripp Island. The body was identified as that of a white male, and a bullet wound was noted in the back of the head. An antique revolver that had belonged to Ellen was found next to the body. This was the first clue that the authorities may have found out what happened to Tondervold. A search of the dead man's pockets turned up no identification of any kind. But Ellen's credit cards were found on him. A resort security guard that was familiar with Tondervold was requested to come by and identify him at the scene. The rate of decomposition and the face-down position of the body made it difficult, but the guard was confident it was him. Curiously, a deceased dog was also found near the body. It's believed they died near the same time, though how the dog died was not revealed. Aftermath of the discovery. The body was cremated in accordance with Tondervold's suicide note, before any fingerprints or DNA were taken. His death was ruled a suicide, despite the location of a bullet wound in the back of his head. Many now believe the discrepancies in the case indicate Tondervold actually successfully faked his death and disappeared. Tondervold body double murder theory. It was discovered during the investigation into Tondervold's activities that he'd placed an ad in Charleston papers ahead of his and Ellen's trip to Charleston. This ad requested a man who was single to drive as a chauffeur. The ad also requested photos be mailed along with their application. Ellen was not aware of these ads and did not remember Tondervold ever mentioning needing a driver. Many people became convinced that Tondervold knew the law was about to catch up onto his scheme, and he'd been looking for a lookalike to murder and leave somewhere to fake his death. It is not known if he ever did hire anyone to drive the Mercedes with him, and he wasn't seen in the company of anyone else while staying at Fripp Island. The gunshot to the back of a body's head suggests someone else shot him rather than suicide. The lack of DNA or fingerprint evidence taken from the decomposing body that was identified as his visually may mean the truth will never be known. Ellen's only known son was Hugh Lawson McClung McBerry. After her father died in 1936, Ellen, her husband and their son had moved into the family estate to care for her mother. Her son went to a prestigious prep school named Groton around this time. In February 1951, the family were taking their annual vacation to Palm Beach, when Hugh Berry shot his grandmother with a shotgun before turning the weapon on his father. His grandmother died a few weeks later, while his father recovered. He also shot a police officer while trying to make an escape. After his capture, a medical examination was performed, and he was deemed unfit to stand trial. His mother believed that a head injury he'd sustained over 3 years before was related to the insanity. Hugh was committed to a mental institution in Chicago and reportedly had undergone a lobotomy while there. He was released in the 1960s and was recorded as having died in Mexico in 1963 from pneumonia. for committing a feud to a mental hospital had been seen by many as a family trying to avoid a lengthy prison sentence for him, and his death in Mexico was doubted by many more due to the lack of accurate reporting on how he died, with some claiming it was an attempt to fake his death at the time. When Dan Tondervold came to live with Ellen over a decade later, many commented on the physical similarities he shared with her deceased son, and her manner around him was considered motherly. In the years since Dan's supposed death, it's been alleged he could have been Ellen's biological son, returned under a new name. This theory was given less believability in 1991, when Dan Tondervold was identified as having gone to a school in Las Vegas, Nevada. It is one of the few concrete facts known about Tondervold's life before he met Ellen. The photo in the school yearbook all but confirmed that Dan Tondervold was likely a different individual to Hugh Berry, despite bearing an uncanny resemblance. Conclusion: Ellen went on to live out her days in a small apartment in Jefferson City. She died in 1992 at the age of 98. Unresolved Mysteries later covered the case, but no new information came to light about whether Dan Tondervold was still alive. What do you think? Did Dan shoot himself in the head after siphoning millions of dollars off of Ellen Berry? Or did he pull off a final successful con before disappearing? Wow, this one was a crazy one. Personally, I think that Dan ended up escaping. He seems like the man who would be able to pull it off. If it's true, I would be curious to see how he did it. And guys, I think this post will be the last one for today. As I said, this is my first time covering this sub, so make sure to give this video a like and tell me in the comments down below if you enjoyed it, and I'll know to make more. Personally, I've loved going through these stories, so I hope you like it too, so that I can make more of those videos. But with that said, you guys, that is it from me. I hope you all enjoyed, and all I want to do is see you all here next time. See you later, guys.